Hey guys, it's Kim here and welcome to my top 5 games of 2015. Regular fans, you know the score. I go through a list of my top 5 games this year, and I'm also going to be doing this series with other members of the Yogscast and asking them what their top 5 games of this year were. Now, the rules are it doesn't have to be a game that was released this year. It can be literally any game that you have just played a lot of this year. I'm also including things like demos, things that are like betas, so things like Overwatch, because it seems to be the new reality of the video games industry now is that we can have perfectly decent games even if they are in beta or a demo or something like that, but they still manage to capture all the hearts and minds of gamers everywhere. So this is my top 5 games of this year. So without further ado, let's jump in at number 5. And before we go to number 5, I just want to get an honorary mention to the amount of multiplayer games that have come out this year that I have had hilarious amounts of fun with. Things like Splatoon, Mario Party, Sports Friends, Duck Game, Keep Talking in the Bot, and then Bomb Explodes. You know, so many games this year. You just have to check the Multiplayer Madness playlist I have. Literally, there were so many games that I could play with friends this year that it was brilliant, and it made this bit really hard for me because also what we had this year was a lot of story-based games released. So in at number 5, I'm going for a joint actually. I'm going for both Her Story and Life is Strange in at number 5. Now the reason why both sit at number 5 is because while both were really good titles that immersed me, both had problems that don't elevate them to kind of knock the other off the number 5 spot. So Her Story I absolutely fell in love with. I thought it was innovative. I really thought the actor who played the part of the main character was brilliant at kind of the deception. I think that the way that you actually solved the case was actually quite natural in the kind of plugging away at, oh, she mentioned this word, I'm going to try this word. Oh, that's open this word, I'm going to try this word. My only criticism is that, well, inevitably it was short. It didn't take me very long to crack the case at all. But obviously I think if it had dragged on, it would have been ridiculous. And it's one of those questions where you go, is this game? I don't know if this is game. And it's very hard to pitch to other people and say, there's this game that's amazing, but it's not really a game. But that said, I'm really looking forward to see what's coming next from the dev Sam Barlow. I think that was such a clever use of gaming mechanics and a use of real life actors. So yeah, really like that. By the same token, Life is Strange. I really loved it. I loved the world, I loved the people, I loved the story, I loved the characters, I loved the mechanic of rewinding to kind of unlock new things. When I look back on it, there were parts that I found incredibly frustrating. I found some parts that were just like in there to show the game mechanic, like what happened at the beginning of, I believe, episode 4. And I think, if you guys want to know my issues with that, watch that first episode of episode 4. And I think you'll know exactly what I mean, where I really didn't enjoy that section. I feel the finale was a bit mishandled. I think it was a bit rushed. I think that I found it incredibly frustrating that everything, playing this game for over 6-7 months boiled down to 2 choices. And I felt that a bit of a cop-out really, and I've seen both endings, and I think the ending I got was definitely the better one because that's what the devs had in mind, but I think the other ending was a total cop-out and really didn't pay you back for the kind of emotional investment that you had with the series. I had issues with a couple of kind of character traits and things like that, but I think you'll get the full rant of that if you watch the series, especially if you watch the very final episode. I kind of mention it there, and I don't want to kind of poop on it here. I did enjoy it thoroughly. I thought it was a brilliant, innovative game again, and it was very interesting as well. It was brilliant as well to have a female character as the lead. I really enjoyed that. Two main lead female characters really, with Chloe as well as Max. So those two share my number 5 spot. Moving on to number 4 for me is White Knight. Now, I'll be honest, this year for horror games I think was a bit of a cop-out. I enjoyed Until Dawn, but it didn't scare me. I enjoyed Soma, again, it didn't really scare me. And if I'm honest, White Knight did scare me when I first came up against one of those horrible lady ghosts. I really didn't like the way that they shimmered and moved. I hated the screams. And what I loved from this game was the aesthetic. I loved the visuals, I loved the black and white nature and the way they used that with shadows, with light. And that was such a key part of the game, was light and the kind of significance of light and imagery of that. I thought the story was brilliant. I really liked the way that it evolved in the form of ghosts, in the form of diary entries, in artifacts being left around. And oh my god, just of all the horror games I've played this year, that one shook me up a fair bit, and I absolutely loved it. I really loved it. I think that people looked at it and went, oh, black and white, not that interesting. And I think that's a real shame, because I think the devs were incredibly clever with their use of lighting and imagery and framing, the way they framed the shot of a room, the way that they kind of highlighted and spotlighted certain things. And I really like that kind of film noir genre. Of course, it is the embodiment of film noir and the kind of the year of, where Prohibition, where they had no alcohol, and jazz and the beautiful singing and the jazz songs in it. So it really nailed that soulful feeling, I think. So yeah, that definitely, I think, is one of my favorite horror games of this year. And that is why it's in at number 4. Going back to multiplayer games, in at number 3 is Secrets of Grindr. Oh boy, I have endless amounts of love for this game. I love that it is a retro JRPG. It feeds right into kind of like my childhood of playing A Link to the Past, of playing Secrets of Mana, Seiken Densetsu, Chrono Trigger, all those things. I felt like it was a big love letter to the genre. The music was cheerful, brilliant. The visuals were cheerful, and they had some really kind of knowing nods and nudges towards JRPGs, RPGs, retro gaming. And the best thing for me was that it is 4 players, so you can play it with 4 friends. And playing it with Rithian, Zoe, and Will Strife, I've had a blast. We are going to keep playing the game. Obviously, it's kind of half finished at the moment, and the dev is working hard to add more dungeons and more levels, and I cannot wait to go back to them. What I enjoyed as well is that it wasn't a pushover. You had to work together, you had to really think about it, and yes, the clues in the title, you had to grind. So unfortunately on camera, we kind of did, because when you're recording, we didn't want to stop. For the first time this year, actually, I think we recorded for like 3-4 hours in a go, because none of us wanted to stop playing. Like and it wasn't kind of like we didn't feel tired by the end. We felt invigorated because we were like, we just want to keep going with this. So I think, I haven't had that with any other game for ages. So yeah, we're definitely going to play more. We've been grinding off camera, and I think Rithian's re-rolled a whole new character just so he could work through it again and really kind of customize things. We've been going through individually, and that's the thing is, I didn't ask anyone to do that. They all did that of their own accord. All of them came back to me when we were recording something else and said, oh yeah, I've actually spent ages just grinding off, because I really wanted to get everything. Zoe's collected all the character cards so that she's got different buffs and things like that. I've crafted a whole bunch of crazy things. And yeah, and it's very rare, I think, recently to have that kind of addiction to a game and really want to keep back and going over things over and over again. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what the dev has in store with the next dungeon. We will go back and defeat that season Hydra. But yeah, absolutely. The other thing is, I love the innovation of it. I love the worlds. I love that, the first place you thought, oh, it's just going to be a freaking wood temple like it always is, and it turned out to be a sci-fi futuristic floating castle full of robots and technology. And then one of the other worlds was you had to go and help Santa Claus at the gift packing factory, and then it was Santa Fe, which I think Rithian almost lost his mind over. And the season temple is so clever. So yeah, really a lot of love I have for Secrets of Grindr, and I cannot wait to get stuck back into it when there are more dungeons. In at number 2, and this may come in as a surprise to you because, well, it's not been on my channel, it is Fallout 4. I am a huge fan of Fallout, the whole Fallout series. Fallout 3, I think I spent something like 90 hours playing on my first playthrough, and that's excluding DLC. There's just something about the post-apocalyptic world that I love. And I talk to other people, and like Duncan, he prefers Skyrim because it's fantasy, and sure, I love Skyrim as well, and I love the fantasy setting, but for me, I'm all about post-apocalypse. I'm about science. I'm about I don't know what it is about that kind of Americana feel, like post-apocalyptic Americana. I absolutely love it. If I'm honest, I can take or leave the crafting system. I find it kind of distracting from what I want to do, and that is just wandering the wastelands, but also I'm kind of addicted to it. And in some ways I do like it because I can just go back and build up my settlements and just play around with them. But I just find myself wasting time doing that and getting really kind of too involved with that, when all I want to be doing is wandering that wasteland. I haven't even really I've played like 15 hours already, and I haven't really done much of the main quest line. All I do is I wander out with Dogmeat. I haven't even changed another companion. I just wander out the worlds, and I just love finding those little side quests, the little details, the little settlements, the tiny settlements you find. What I call, in game mechanics, the telltale blood trail, the skeleton, the set dressing that just tells a story with 2 corpses and a feral ghoul, things like that. And I absolutely am adoring the world. It's more of Fallout 3. I kind of don't like that my character has a voice. I liked being a silent protagonist beforehand and imprinting my own choices on it. But yeah, I feel like I've come home. And I really can't wait for the Christmas break for me to kind of sit down and play it, because it's been ages actually since I've had that feeling of I haven't managed to play this game for a week because I've been so busy with work. I'm getting itchy. I can't stop thinking about it. I need to get back to it. So yeah, I think it's been a long time since I've felt that. It still has all those kind of, Bethesda bugs that we know and love. It's glitchy as hell. Sometimes it goes really weird, and there are the odd frustrations. But I can overlook that because what can I say? It's Fallout, and I've been waiting for it for such a long time, ever since 3. Do you know what? I'm still playing 3 actually, and just wandering around that because I can't stop being in that world. So from one post-apocalyptic countryside to another, you may have guessed it, my number 1 this year is Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Now, I know this is not the game for everybody, but there is something about Rapture that just spoke to me on so many levels. I fell in love with this game. I fell in love with the world. It is set in somewhere, I like to think it's Somerset. It looks like Somerset to me, but mid-England countryside. It is beautiful, an absolutely beautiful game. I've always been a big fan of the Chinese Rooms games. That's the dev team. I love Dear Esther and all that, but I do think, Dear Esther, I was like, please, can I have a little bit more guidance? I need a little bit more clues in the story. And this was like the perfect solution to that. The kind of way it tells you the story and the things that you find, again, in the kind of beams of light, in the voice acting. The voice acting was so good. And when I looked at the cast list, it really was the cream of the crop of kind of British radio, British TV. The way they told the story in the sparks of light that you followed, in empty rooms, the telltale lack of a corpse because they'd all disappeared, the beautiful use of light, and of course, the kind of just the sci-fi nature of it all. I love sci-fi, and I think British sci-fi is one of the strongest genres there is. I think, British authors and creators and TV shows, I think, I love sci-fi of all kind of nationalities, but I think there's something about British sci-fi authors and writers that they really get it, and get some of these things like, I go back and I read books from, back in the 1980s, back in way before that, 1950s, 1940s, 1930s, so far back, and you just think, how on earth did they actually foresee things that are here now? It's crazy, but this to me was pure British sci-fi in a British world in the countryside, and I fell in love with absolutely everything. I know people were frustrated at the ending. I still think about the ending, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I love it or hate it, or if I was just so in love with the world anyway, they couldn't do me wrong. So maybe I'm a little bit biased that way. It was an absolutely magical experience for me. I know Hannah didn't enjoy it, and I think, when she played it on a live stream, and I think that was totally the wrong place to play it, because when you do it on a live stream, it's like you're playing it in a room full of people, and they're kind of commenting on it, and what you want to do is you want to sit on your own, because you want to feel that isolation of being the last person left alive, trying to figure out what the hell happened to everybody. But not just what happened to everybody in the Rapture, but what was going on with people in their lives, and kind of, exposing that everyday drama and the everyday connections and the connections you have with people around you. And sometimes you think, I am so small in this world and no one would ever notice. And the truth is so completely different. And that's what this game nailed, was everyone is connected. Everyone is always thinking of everyone else. And on top of all of this, we had the frankly astonishingly beautiful soundtrack composed by Jessica Curry. What a talented lady. The soundtrack moved me to tears at times. I've downloaded it since and I play it so much. The use of voices and the use of themes. So when it was kind of like a female section, they had female choirs. When they went to kind of ruddy, I can't remember his name, but the ruddy kind of Yorkshireman, well, he wasn't really Yorkshireman, generic country farmer, the voices changed, kind of deep, rural male voices. And I think Jessica was so sensitive to portraying the atmosphere, the message, the story through her music. And what an absolutely talented lady. It broke my heart when she announced that later on that she was stepping down from her development role at the Chinese Room because of sexism in the industry, because she's dealing with long-term illness, a whole kind of horrible mixture of reasons. I think she's an extremely talented lady, and her touch shows in games like this. And if you're not interested in the game, at least go and listen to the soundtrack, because it is absolutely magical and it still sends chills down my spine every time I listen to it. So there you go, guys. That is my top 5 games of 2015. A little bit of a mixed bag, a lot of multiplayer games waiting in the wings that I've thoroughly enjoyed this year. A couple of, mostly story-based games, I think. Some games with beautiful aesthetics and different aesthetics. Some games with different gaming mechanics. Only one AAA there, which is quite interesting, I think. And I think definitely this was the year for multiplayer games and for indie titles. And I can't wait to see what we've got coming up next year. So what's next for this series? Well, I've got a whole bunch of Yogs joining me with their top 5 games, and I'd like you to get involved as well. Let me know what your top 5 games are this year, and let me know in the comments below, or tweet me, or put them up on my subreddit. We're all friendly over on my subreddit. That's reddit.com/r/Yogscast Always up for a good discussion over there. So thank you very much for joining me so far, and I can't wait to talk to everyone else about what their experiences this year were. I'll see you guys next time.